And we are live. Welcome, viewers. Welcome, listeners. This is my Saturday interview with a very interesting gentleman that I've only just been acquainted with. Fantastic guy. I was actually a fan of his speaking engagement at the ICMI 2020 conference, where he did a lecture praising of the self-interest of the competitive male, which I thought was a fascinating talk. He and I have recently become acquainted. He's a fan of Elizabeth Hobson and, of course, Greta Aurora. He's been in the chat for both of those, and they say, "Hey, man, come on, let's hear his story." So today, gentlemen and ladies, it's Vernon. What is it? It's Meigs. Is the last?
It's Meigs. Yeah, you got it. Most people don't get that right. So
fantastic, Vernon. Welcome. Is it okay if I call you V then? I mean,
V is fine. Vernon. Online, I go by V for Vernon, which is a online screen name, but it gives away my own name. So
fair enough. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time. Hopefully we'll bang out an hour today, and maybe, we were talking before, you might come back, we might do a couple other talks.
Yeah, a couple others, however many is fine.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, the big thing that you're kind of known for, at least in the recent, we'll get to your music and all of the things that you're involved in, but the theme has been men's rights and your engagement in the political sphere. So I want you to just kind of maybe do a little bit of your background. When you were younger and kind of growing up, where did you come from? Did you come from a political environment? And eventually, what brought you to the political sphere?
Well, I was basically born in Japan as a United States citizen born abroad, right? My father was a Navy retiree and was teaching English there, and basically, so I was born there with the intent of us kind of moving to the United States at some point. So I had a preteen childhood in Japan, and
fabulous.
Right. Well, in a way, yes. I mean, from day one, I guess I didn't fit in because I'm half Japanese, half Caucasian, and
is it haku?
I'm sorry.
What is it? Hafu is the phrase they say in Japan.
Hafu, it's like a Japanization of half.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I never like being called that, so I just don't really care for that. I just don't like all the what do you call it? Some people call them happas, which that's kind of strange too. But here's the thing: because I just didn't want to be defined by these kind of things.
Yes.
So that was my early kind of seeds of individualism. Because the one thing before even libertarianism, capitalism, men's rights, above all that on the hierarchy is individualism. So that's my primary advocacy.
Excellent.
Right.
So you were raised with that. You were kind of confronted on wanting to be an individual. I mean, Japan, for want of a better say, it is very xenophobic. They don't really accept mixed race individuals and stuff. Ironically, my co-host is also mixed race. His mother is Taiwanese. So
okay.
Yeah, and he knows Hapa Supremacy, the podcast, and all these guys.
Okay.
So, I mean, growing up in that environment, Japan, very collectivist, very nationalist identity, you've got a unique story going on. Did you just learn that on your own, or was that something instilled from your parents?
What in particular are you referring to? The individualism?
Individualism, yeah, the individualism. And where did that get to libertarianism then?
Well, not to say that my parents are in, the watch that my dad gave me, speaking of my dad, is telling me that it's 9:04. Right. So, I mean, not that they were in any way politically active or anything like that. They had their views, but, back in my time in Japan, I was not even really aware of them. Like, I guess I was too young to really kind of conceptualize all that. But, from my dad and to some extent my mother, it's just, there is kind of a be yourself kind of a thing, and don't conform kind of a thing going on, right? Not to say that they've told me to do one thing or the other or be one way or the other themselves, but I still love them. Right, no hard feelings there. But there's a lot of conformity, and it's easy to speak about the conformity in Japan, but because of that social conformity, all the individualism I can see in retrospect kind of buried deep down and kind of manifesting itself in like shows and especially when stuff marketed to kids, like, and boys and stuff like that. It's like one thing when I was really into in Japan was, you know, stuff like uh, mini four-wheel drives. It's like, do you know what those are?
It's a toy, right? It's a small.
Well, you know, I'm going to be a bit of a geek here and say it's more than just a toy.
Fair enough.
Right. It's basically kind of a hobbyist thing where, you know, you use batteries and a real miniature motor, and you can and you can fine tune, and, you know, run across a circuit, and, you know,
awesome.
Right, but, you know, here's the thing, I was the only kid in my area that was into that kind of stuff so much, and, you know, like, because, you know, the thing about kids is that, you know, fads come and go, but I didn't want to follow fads. I just wanted to do what I like, and so, you know, there was that pressure going on, you know. But, you know, back to the individualism, you know, that's where it all kind of goes. But when you grow up, you know, people apparently have to start conforming and throw your dreams away and stuff like that. You know, you got to have a family and stuff. So I don't know, like, you know, this is more retrospective kind of stuff I'm thinking about. But then, you know, 2001 is when we finally, you know, my family moved to Florida.
Awesome.
And right, a month after we moved to Florida, 9/11 happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's right. That's right.
right. So so that was kind of hitting us, you know, pretty, you know, it's so, you know, I was kind of realizing as I've been living my years in the United States, is that, you know, in some ways it's just as collectivist as Japan, you know.
Really? It's an
Right.
interesting take.
That's what I kind of, you know, I mean, you know, there's differences on both, you know, but, you know, the United States and the Western world like to talk up their individualism, but there's still so much collectivism. There's so much pressure to conform in their own way, that I felt like, not just because of my race, you know, because uh, and such, but, you know, I just felt like I was never going to have a home. You know, like I was never going to fit in anywhere. So, you know, I guess that kind of made me more and more conscious about individualism and the need for that, right? And I guess it was perhaps late high school that that I had to make a decision. I was going to read a Friedrich Nietzsche book, or I was going to read The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, and I picked The Fountainhead.
The Fountainhead.
Right.
Not an easy book. It's not an easy book to read.
Oh, you say that, but that was the first time I was glued to the book.
Really?
Right. Like I can't get my hands off the book. I had to like spend a lot of hours in a day reading, which I never did before. I think I did something similar when I was reading Harry Potter, but, you know, because
fair enough.
right. But still, like, after, you know, this is like the next best thing in my right. I think Stephen King's It also I also was glued to, but that's an exception.
So would you say it was obviously you read The Fountainhead,
Mhm.
and suddenly a whole new ideology opens up to you, objectivism.
Mhm.
That was kind of your precursor into you know, kind of getting into the politics side and the libertarianism, would you say?
Sure.
Yeah. So that was like a major influence, right? When you're reading that book, you had like an aha moment, and
Right.
you realized this is what you were into.
Exactly. Like I suppose I was curious about her take on capitalism, because at the time I was kind of grappling with what high schools are teaching about capitalism, this kind of evil kind of thing about, you know, making money is evil, that making a profit is evil, and we should be a little bit more socialist and that kind of stuff, because that's what they were trying to hint at, you know. But, you know, but, you know, but even then I was kind of still trying to do this trying to be more individualist, right?
Yes.
But didn't have the philosophy to back that up.
Right.
You know, right? You know, so once I read The Fountainhead, you know, like this, you know, encapsulated an actual code for individualism that I've never seen before. And but here's the thing. In true individualist fashion, I didn't even classify myself as an objectivist till like 2000, late 2012.
Right.
Right.
That's almost 10 years later, you'd say?
Almost, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Basically, like, Yeah, give or take.
Yeah,
But
it's probably 11, 12 years, but it's too far
right, yeah.
on,
But
yeah.
it's like I really wanted to kind of be sure, down to the last second that it was right. But at the point, you know, that's basically what I classify myself as, right?
Right.
Um,
Even to this day, you would still consider yourself an objectivist.
yeah, yeah. I mean, now here's the thing. I don't have to like everything the Ayn Rand
Of course.
Institute says. I
Of
don't have
course.
to agree with some percentage of what Rand herself said. Be an active-minded individual. You know, don't
Absolutely.
right. Don't be an Ayn Rand Institute clone. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, did you read any of her other books?
I read Atlas Shrugged. I read Anthem.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Um,
another big one.
there's another big one, but Anthem. I loved Anthem, but it was too short. Yeah. And I read We the Living, though it was a bit of a depressing book. I'll have to read it again, but that book does not have a really happy ending.
Right.
Um,
I think I read that one
right.
actually.
Yeah. And I've read Ideal. That's one of her early works, and I've read a collection of her short stories as well. I've been kind of tearing into her stuff, much, a lot, but I don't really get a chance to read honestly that much.
Fair enough. Fair
Right.
enough. So with these new philosophies, you're in the US, obviously there's a cataclysmic change that's taken place after 9/11.
Hmm.
You're going down and reading the Ayn Rand. Did you get any kind of opposition? Was your family all right? Were the arguments at Thanksgiving different? Maybe debates at school, anything like that?
Well, in my immediate family, well, we don't like when it comes to my own family, my own
Sure.
biological family, and the ones surrounding. We don't really have a whole lot of political discussions, and we don't have.
Good.
We haven't. It's rare that we have other family over.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And when it comes to Thanksgiving with my wife's family, honestly, it hasn't been that bad. Honestly.
Good, good.
Yeah. Right. I mean, there's always going to be the occasional awkward moment, but I don't really bring up my objectivism that much, honestly.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Right.
Did you have it in school though? Was there, did you get into debates with your friends or anything?
Not so much. I mean, there's like when I was in college, I basically kind of got some guy that entered me and my roommates, dorm room and saw my Ayn Rand books. Oh, that's your Bible, isn't it? And kind of going off about how Anthem was so hard to read or something like that. Kind of expressing clear disdain for her philosophy. It's just
Yeah.
right. They made no secret about that. So so much for the whole tolerance thing, but.
Yeah, the tolerant left, as we say,
Right.
I mean, that's a fantastic foundation. It's actually kind of similar to where I've been at.
Mhm.
But so you obviously got into libertarian thought. I don't know if you're familiar with the Mises Institute, maybe looking at some Austrian economics and stuff like that. So the next big question is, how did you get into the men's rights and the men's rights activism? That's because we discussed briefly your relationship. A lot of men come to this from a divorce situation,
Right.
which is not your story. So how did you get into men's rights?
Well, I've always been in general, I've been critical of feminism for some time, right? Like I think,
Really?
how do I put it? It's like 2007, 2008 was when I was like was already a critic of. Well, it was from a anti-collectivist standpoint because that right. Like I suppose at the time, before that, I guess I kind of went along with the mainstreaming of feminism, in which if you're from if you believe women should be equal with men, then you're a feminist kind of idea, right? So I kind of just that's the kind of thing that's uh, gets sneaked into social media, right, from kind of trickles down from the the ivory towers into kind of day-to-day life. So it becomes kind of saturated in the unconscious that you got to be a feminist or you're not for equal rights or something like that.
Yeah.
But I kind of woke myself up from that one, and because I realized it was a bit of a collectivist sort of an ordeal. It's not like maybe perhaps I thought that good feminism should be more about an individualistic approach to it, which at the time I recognized that there were 3 feminists at the time that I thought were that. Wendy McElroy,
Right.
Camille Paglia, and Christina
Yes.
Hoff Sommers, right? Now these are entirely there's more on these, but
Yes.
and during my time in college, I've been kind of often critical of feminism in an editorial section that I kept writing for the school newspaper, and I got a lot of flack for that.
Right.
Um, right. So I kind of had a bad reputation in that respect. So
I would say that's a great reputation. I mean, the
right.
names you called, of course, are fantastic. So you were exposed to these ladies while you were still in college, you said?
Yes. Right. I'm not that I was very, very well read or anything like that. I
Sure.
started reading Sexual Personae by Paglia.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good book, but I didn't finish it because I had other things going on, and sometimes I lose track. Now I've been following up during 2019. I've been following a podcast called Femsplainers, which was Christina Hoff Sommers and her co-host.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, this is the Jordan Peterson and intellectual dark web era of listen to disagreements, and stuff like that, right? And there's the occasional agreement, the occasional disagreement, but I was supposed to kind of just take it in, I disagree with this, I agree with that, the kind of right, this sort of thing, right? But that was around the same time I was kind of getting myself more, I was paying more attention to the men's rights groups, because I suppose previously I didn't go out of my way to call myself a men's issues or men's rights advocate, because perhaps I had the misgiving that it was like the other side of the coin to feminism or something like that, right?
Right.
But I changed my mind when I introduced myself to Karen Strawn's videos on YouTube, right?
Right.
I was kind of getting more educated about actual female privileges from time immemorial, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right. And and I've been paying attention to myself to more of that, and every so often when the subject of men's rights comes up in the Femsplainers podcast, well, they are not kind to it. They were not kind to it. It's like they would have guests on that would say that the men's rights movement is tied to the alt-right and white supremacy.
Right.
And the straw that broke the back, was when Christina Hoff Sommers and the co-host went after. Well, not went after. This was supposed to be like a praise of forgotten feminists, right? Feminists that were canceled, right? Guess who the subject was?
I can't even imagine.
Erin Pitsey.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Right. So I mean, it was not a whole show about the subject, but it was kind of like a segment of the show in which they were speaking about how Erin Pitsey was a forgotten feminist, right? That was kind of chastised by the feminist status quo, and like had all these terrible things happen to her. But then, when they got about her being, involved in men's rights, as well as even she was involved in a voice for men, right?
I believe so.
Right,
yes.
Right. Yeah. That's when she kind of Christina Hoff Sommers kind of going, that's taking it a bit far, that's
Really.
right. No, and so it's like they were clearly disdainful of that thing. Like, see, they were talking about feminists airbrushing Erin Pitsey away from their history, but then they were airbrushing Erin Pitsey for being involved in men's rights. So
exactly the same thing. The same thing.
I just couldn't stand that hypocrisy, and I wrote them a letter. They have never to this day responded that I knew of.
Right.
So this equity feminist stuff, this whole thing about being let's be polite and talk about men's issues from a rational feminist lens. That lie was being shattered. I kind of had enough. I just I need to let's speak to real men's rights people, right?
Yeah.
And and then I encountered Paul Elam's works on his channels, and I just loved his takedown of Christina Hoff Sommers for his kind of her kind of traditionalist kind of view on how men should be. I suppose they should be that there's a fundamental way that men should behave towards women in some this chivalric kind of way.
Yeah.
So that I'm kind of discovering that I wasn't the only person that had these kind of viewpoints, and and Paul Elam was a very refreshing person to watch videos of, and um, and in terms of more men's rights people I admire, well, of course, I admire Elizabeth Hobson, but Peter Wright was the person I've been really corresponding with. He's practically a mentor to me, actually, and we've been hitting it off very much on the subject of the gynocentrism of both sides, the feminist gynocentrism and the traditionalist gynocentrism.
Correct.
How they kind of basically expect men to die for one reason or another, to service society, at the expense of the men for the sake of these women. See, the difference between the traditionalist gynocentrist and the feminist gynocentrist is that the traditionalists are thankful when men sacrifice themselves.
Right. Right. That's true. For the viewers who may not understand it, there is a premise that throughout social order, men are disposable, the disposability of men, but that's how we've kind of built society, that men will go to war to protect women and children. That's always been kind of the thing. But in doing so, there was also the authority that men had as being the defenders, the providers, and all of these different types of things. They were given a certain amount of authority in the home, a certain amount of respect in the community, and all of these different types of things. And the waves of feminism have basically come in, and they've stripped the authority from men, but they still expect them to do all of this sacrificing, right? That's so, yeah, as you say, they may be thankful. I think we would both agree that men right now are very much falling behind in the social order, in education, and other types of things.
Right.
And a lot of people do not want to accept the answer that for men, there's not a major benefit in really participating in a lot of these institutions in society. Once upon a time, going and getting a job would give you access to sexuality, for instance. You're a hardworking man, you get married, you have access to sex.
Right.
Now, access to sex, you don't even have to be married, right? Right? All of these things are kind of falling apart. So, everybody you've mentioned, they've kind of addressed a lot of these issues and so forth. What would you say then in terms of when you finally got invited to speak at the ICMI, the International Conference on Men's Issues, 2020, virtually because of the pandemic? So watch us in the future. That must have been a huge honor. Could you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
Okay, so after all this kind of shattered perception went down with the whole breaking with the equity feminists and getting myself more serious into men's issues for being men's issues, I started a blog on WordPress, vforvernon.wordpress.com, and my first article, since I'm trying to remember the title of my own work here, I think it was the objectivist case for men's issues advocacy. I believe it's men's rights advocacy, and basically kind of giving an introduction to that self-interest based approach to men's issues, right? Yes. Now, because one thing I've been perceiving a lot, and even the best names in men's rights advocacy, is this kind of idea of praising men for their losses, their sacrifices, their deaths, what they give, as opposed to what they do for themselves, like for living their own life and doing awesome things. So, I think, that's the kind of esteem that was needed for men to properly, in my opinion, advocate for men's issues advocacy.
Yes.
Right. So I wrote that article, right? And and Elizabeth and I were already friends on Twitter at the time, right? And we were chatting off and on. And I was kind of, hey, I wrote my first blog piece. Can you check it out when you get a chance? And she read it and she said, this is so awesome. Would you like to talk on the ICMI 20?
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah. And this is before that whole so many people can join in kind of a thing. This was before that. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah. You were the first rung. You were early special.
Right. Yeah.
Excellent.
Because she said that before they weren't even going to invite anybody that didn't speak on an ICMI before, so that was a huge honor. So
that's amazing. And how did you feel when she said that? You know, obviously vindicated with your work. How did that make you feel?
giddy.
Good man.
Yeah. I was, you know how it is. I couldn't sleep that night, kind of a thing.
Right.
I was just so hyped up. I was just honored to be alongside, great, a lot of great speakers, and also nervous because I knew for a fact that my speech was going to be a bit of a what I imagine would be a polarizing round, because I don't think that the individualist in my perception, I don't know if the individualist argument is that popular.
Right.
Because people are still kind of going by, whether because they really believe it or because of defeatism, that men, we don't care about men for being men. This is how it is, So, and or you know how it is. It's like nobody's self-interest and selfishness is unpopular terms and always used negatively, and so yeah. I also felt nervous, to answer your question, because I knew that I'm gonna have to be like a rogue black sheep in all this. I don't know if that's the way it turned out. It's my understanding that my video did okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would have been my next question, is what has been kind of the fallout, but we'll get to that. So let's that night you couldn't sleep, giddy, obviously feeling very honored.
Mm-hmm.
You set it up. You recorded it at home.
Yes.
Yeah. So you did it at home, and you did the presentation. It's available online. I think Elizabeth Hobson has it on her channel, and there are a couple of the places.
Right. I don't know if she has it on her channel particularly, but it is on the Justice for Men and Boys channel. Right. And I know for a fact it's on An Ear for Men. That's You're right. So I know for a fact that it's on those. So.
Yeah. So I'll see if I can dig in and probably add the links below. So you do the present, and you did well. I listened to it. I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. Mm-hmm. How did you feel after you did the presentation? And was there what kind of response did you get after you did the presentation?
Well, I got pretty decent response. Some people saying, there's one comment that said, it was pretty long-winded for a point that he agreed with, but it was supposed to be long-winded. I needed to fill out the 40 minutes. Come on now. Yeah. But aside from that, I was kind of looking at my finished product, and I didn't realize till later that I mispronounced MGTOW twice.
MGTOW, yeah. Was it?
Yeah. Embarrassing mistake. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah. So it's this kind of I could have done that better. This or that. So yeah. But on the whole,
it was all positive. Yeah. and you, for those who don't, you do have a job outside of just your internet stuff. Was there any kind of fallout from your work? That tends to be something people are concerned about these days.
Well, I admit some degree of worry, but I don't work for a huge company, and nobody's brought it up. I don't advertise to them that what I do in my personal life. I work with good people, and I guess there is that kind of anxiety. What if they found out, and if so, what would they think about it? Should I have used a pseudonym, like a complete pseudonym instead of the one I use instead, or but here's the thing. It's like despite the fact that there are some people out there that use synonyms or don't show their real face for fear of being discovered in their job or something like that. I realized that some speakers in the ICMI were orated by other people.
Yes.
Right. But in my mind, I have the one life to live, and I've got to live it true to myself.
Yes.
Despite whatever fallout could happen. It's better than being beholden to what could happen. And kind of being in this kind of state of momentary sort of safety, from being discovered and the consequences thereof. So I figured, my V for Vernon kind of username is kind of like, it kind of slightly makes fun of the idea of a pseudonym. It's like, this is what I go by online, but it's a dead giveaway too, and I show my face too, right? I have one of the most recognizable faces ever, I think. And I do say so for myself, because everybody will know it's me, but it's a risk I have to take. It's like, and whatever fallout comes from that, I have to, it'll be better for me if I learn to adapt to that, and instead of kind of being comfortable, risk free, nod to every bull crap going around, that kind of thing. But
you can't swear on the show. It's all right. It's
yeah, sure, right. But it's like, yeah. I don't like this idea of living in fear. Well, I mean, fear exists, but don't let it, stifle you.
Yeah, don't let it run your life.
Exactly.
I mean, I share your sentiment. I got into YouTube around, I don't know, probably 2014. I started my channel here when I moved to the UK, and around that time was very big in the skeptic community, Sargon of Akkad and, TLDR. And like you say, a lot of them were just these avatars. And it was just cartoon figures that were kind of talking, and and I get it. I understand the nature of speaking on controversial issues, especially today, 2021, cancel culture and all these things. But that was never going to be me. I always respected people more that I could see face to face, much like yourself, and have a real dialogue. I feel there's more authenticity to the message that way. So
now, it's not to say that I hold people who hide themselves or go by pseudonym in disdain by any,
of course,
in any way, but because their situation might be more delicate.
Yeah, you got to be true to yourself. I agree.
Right. But I figure if I'm going to be discovered anyway, because and here's the thing, it's a very egoistic side of me that I want people to know that it's me almost. It is me who's saying this. Especially when something's not said before.
Yeah.
Right. And I do try and focus in my videos. I try to focus on things that don't get a whole lot of attention. I know it's popular to go after something like some shitty things that UN women, put on their tweets or something like that, and make fun of that. And I know a lot of people kind of do that. And you can pick and choose what kind of horse shit that the feminist media picks, right? But here's the thing, but what I wanted to do is basically kind of pick apart some things I think are going wrong in the men's community, or things that might be popular in the men's community. So aside from the fact that I kind of obliterated Christina Hoff Sommers in my first video for Bitchute, that it was a response of that Aaron Pitsy thing, right?
Yes.
Another video I did was a criticism of the intellectual dark web, actually.
Right. Interesting.
Right. Yeah. Because there were too many in the intellectual dark web. There are, shall we say, either justifying or excuse making, if not downright supporting, male genital mutilation of infants.
Circumcision.
Yes.
Really? Wow. Okay. Right. I was not aware of that. I wasn't aware of that.
Right. I did make a video called "Confronting the Intellectual Dark Web" on MGM, I believe it was called. Right. But yeah, so I was kind of picking apart some things by Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Brett Weinstein. Because they were kind of talking about some really, it is my understanding that the men's movement by and large is against MGM, infant MGM. So that's a great thing. But at the same time, this doesn't seem to be as talked about. So the fact that some of the men's movement's greatest heroes are saying, are kind of justifying this thing, and because they're making the argument that this is a sacrifice that a male child must undergo.
Yeah.
Right. As early as 5 days in the world.
yeah, can't consent, can't do anything.
Right.
It's put upon the kid. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. Right. Right. So, this kind of just fuels my, anti, sacrifice kind of
Yeah.
perspective, um, so I really had to kind of unload on that one.
And this is on your BitChute channel.
It is on my Bitchute channel. It's also on my YouTube channel. But
Okay.
yeah, I created a YouTube channel somewhat late in the game. Uh, but as much as I don't like the idea of using YouTube because it's
Yeah.
it's big, it's part of the whole big tech thing. At the same time, that's where I get some of my most views.
It's the
And
biggest audience. Yeah.
yeah, right. So
Undeniable.
like
Yeah.
I'm trying to experiment with having only previews in my YouTube so I can redirect them to my other video channels.
Good.
I have a video that I still need to edit that I might try that out with. We'll see how that happens. It's like I'm just kind of resentful of the fact that it's YouTube that's giving me more attention than the other things. But you know how it is.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm monetized on this channel, so there's a bias for me to do work on this channel.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Another
Unfortunately,
thing. Because I want to say exactly what I want, I don't bother with monetization.
fair enough.
Right, right. It's kind of strange that an ardent capitalist kind of gut supporter says that, but I got to be basically be sure that I don't want to be in a situation where saying the wrong thing loses the money.
Right.
You know.
There is a way around that, which we've discovered for the 10K Run podcast. So, I welcome anybody who's listening to this. I do the 10K Run podcast. You do a Patreon or you do a Subscribe Star.
I do a Subscribe Star, not a Patreon.
Right. Well, fair. Yeah, agree. Patreon has become a complete disaster. But so you do like a paid content. You could still post it on YouTube, but it's unlisted.
Right.
And, yeah. So it's kind of a worker. But I mean, we can touch on the tech censorship. I just want to briefly touch on because I do know we want to get to your music.
Yeah.
But I want to touch on your interview with Elizabeth Hobson and Greta Aurora. How'd you set that up? And I thought it was amazing. I thought it was great. You guys had a lot. You discussed music again. And it's almost like Elizabeth is trying to push you to be a bigger voice in the men's community. So
I credit her very much for that. Like I think that she's been very supportive from the get go of giving me an more of that push, right? As you said.
Yes.
The interview of that particular interview was suggested by Elizabeth herself because Greta was visiting at the time and she was doing that live stream together, that Q&A live stream. So she was still hanging around at her place at the time. So and I realized they were arranging several interviews and I was just one of them. And it was somewhat spontaneous actually. Did you want to chat with Greta? Sure. Okay. All right. Well, let me hack up some questions. Right. Yeah. So yeah, and one thing is that it was the first time I was doing something quite like that. So I was using Skype for the interview, and Elizabeth was cut in half for.
I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was like, God darn it! Like it doesn't look like that when you're doing the interview itself, but it's like, like, oh, great. Yeah, I still wanted to release it because it was a good talk, but yeah.
You hit on some great topics, and I would advise it. I would say, bro, continue to do those interviews.
Right.
I think you have a very unique perspective when it comes to a lot of things because you in terms of a public face, you're kind of new to the whole front line of the discussion of men's rights.
Right.
But hearing your history, it's fantastic. I absolutely love the story. Coming from Japan, getting to the United States, and being introduced to all these ideas and being able to express it. It's a fabulous story. It's a fantastic story.
It is. Yeah. Right. I mean, one thing is that I'm not the kind of guy that really kind of over exaggerates myself because I may be an egoist, but I want to be a true egoist. It's like that's actually really what it is about me. And I don't know how flashy or over the top I am enough to get so much attention.
Right.
So it's like I'm not really one to market myself in a way I don't feel comfortable. So I don't know if that affects my popularity at all or anything like that. And I also stammer a bit. I don't know if you've noticed. I've actually been doing okay in this interview, more than I expected. But I have issues with that. Because I fight nervousness, and it's like.
Yeah.
Sometimes I kind of lose track of what I'm trying to say, and so I don't know if my style is all that fantastic, but
Right.
it's still it's what I do, and I'd rather stick to that.
Absolutely. As you say, it's a unique perspective, and I quite enjoy your style. It's very calm, very logical, very put forward. I'm glad that I can make you feel comfortable. That just very quickly before we get into the music side of it,
Sure.
what advice would you have for young men, as you were, coming up in this kind of gynocentric world? What advice would you give them, and who would you advise that they listen to, to kind of break free of the matrix? Like who would red pill the upcoming generation, if you can speak to all of them?
All right. So first off, advice for young men:
Yes.
don't bend a knee. Don't bend a knee.
To what? Be a little more specific. To
whatever, like anything that wants you to bend a knee, like so because we've got people kind of doing this political correctness kind of stuff in the past year, right? And
oh, we got a question here. We'll get to that, to the phrase "man up."
Yeah, I'd be glad to answer that. I know there's context, but it's by and large horseshit. It's because it's like man up. Well, what's your standard then?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be a man? Because we in this sort of gynocentric world, man up. Man up. To be a man usually means be a sacrificial man.
Yeah.
Right. And man up and do things the way we want it to be. So this kind of parasitic, idea, now there is such a thing as being an adult, right?
Yes.
There's some aspect to that one, but here's the thing about being an adult. You can only be a competent adult if you're in touch with your inner boy, or if you're a woman and your inner girl, I suppose. This is kind of the puer and puella archetypes that I've been kind of exploring as of late. Kind of staying in touch with that playful side of you. I don't mean the inner child kind of thing that kind of comes up in relationships in which one plays the role of child and one the parent in a kind of a toxic way. I don't mean that, but what I mean is kind of like you don't have to be, you don't have to sacrifice your inner boy just to get through. That's another bit of advice I might say I'd like to give. You get to have your hobbies. You get to kind of tinker with your cars, or dote on your guitar, and no apologies. I play Magic the Gathering, of course, and I collect music, and I still feel like I haven't grown up, like I'm 31 years old, and
I was about to ask.
I'm 31 years old, and I feel like I'm still in touch with my inner boy, and I guess the pressure to dislodge from your inner boy starts in teenhood, I think. Because this is when everyone's telling you to man up and stuff like that, but you kind of realize sometimes too late that you never had to do that. You still face the world as a man, as an adult, but in a way that is not you don't have to obliterate yourself to do it. You don't have to be this kind of a sacrificial animal. You have to be. You can be the one you've made all those promises to when you were little.
I like it. I'll put my spin on that, Betty, just to kind of somebody explained. My dad didn't explain this to me. Somebody else explained this to me, and I actually quite liked what the guy said, and I remember it to this day.
Okay.
Right. So I went through a very tragic, when my parents separated, it was very traumatic for me. I was probably 10 or 11 or whatever at the time. And a comment was made to me, I kind of heard in passing, well, he's just going to have to man up. And I'd never heard the expression before. And then, later on, this man that, kind of not a father figure, but a guy that we knew, he came and I asked him, what does that even mean? And what he said to me, which I think is great, he said, look, what it means is that you are a man, right? You're born a man. And it means that you have huge potential for greatness, for, whatever you desire. You have massive potential. And in a sense, whatever you're going through right now hasn't killed you, which means that you're stronger than it. It hurts, and you need to be in touch with the reality of the pain, and don't deny any of that, but it hasn't killed you, and you have the potential to outgrow it. And I thought that was brilliant. Right. I mean, that's not how it's used. As you say, when people say man up, it basically means shut up and take it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut up and die or whatever.
Exactly. And I appreciate that very much. It's like, man up is good if the standard of being a man is a positive one for the self. Right. Yes. So there's obviously, context, to speak about that. But, but yeah, I absolutely get your point.
Yeah, I like that. And if ever I have a son, I'll pass it that way, holding up masculinity as a positive. Like,
exactly,
you can change the world, and if anything, you can change your life and yourself. And I think that's great.
Right. Yeah. Because here's the thing, like when you're a child, when you're a little boy, you may have dreams, and you've got there's all these kind of things you want to potentially immerse yourself into, but you can't do that until you're an adult.
Correct.
So when you're an adult, and if there's no one to fulfill that promise to inside you, then adulthood is dismal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you and I could do it in time, because even I do a lot of work with my inner child and stuff. I want to get to the music, bro. The music. Oh, come on, man. Right. So very quickly, where did obviously you've got a massive passion for music. Were your parents into music? Where did this come from?
Well, I've been surrounded by music since day one, practically, right? Like my parents aren't musicians or anything like that, right? But my dad's always had his old country tapes playing in the house and in the car and stuff like that. So I was surrounded by that, and I can't show you the photo because I don't have it handy. Well, I shouldn't show you anyway, but one picture, a family picture that we happen to have that I consider like a defining moment of music, kind of jokingly, is that my dad's kind of holding me, as a baby, right? And I had these huge headphones on,
bigger than your head almost.
Right. So my dad was holding me while I was having headphones, kind of with wide
your head.
Yeah, I know that was one of my favorite photos, but so I like there was all everything that I kind of immersed myself into had musical accompaniment, right? And one thing that this is gonna sound silly to some, but so did you ever watch Thomas the Tank Engine when you were little?
Oh, we didn't have that in my. I know what it is though. The little train engine and
yeah.
I know what it is. Yeah, but I never saw it.
Yeah, sure, but we had videotapes of that, and I put them on, but and that show was like saturated in music, right? And every engine had their theme.
Cool.
Right. So I kind of realized, there's a theme for Thomas, and there's a theme for Gordon and Henry and whoever else. So it's like it kind of gets the gears turning, So like I've played during the mid '90s. I played some educational CD-ROMs called Knowledge Adventure games, and a lot of them was composed by a guy called Hamilton Altstadt, and it was like really unique MIDI based music that was even to this day influential, because right now I got my DOS box, like my DOS emulator, and I still have my CD-ROMs, and I play that for the nostalgic experiences, let some educational stuff kind of sink in
as an afterthought, as a secondary thought.
Yeah. But the music was just so unique. It's you can actually find some of that stuff online on YouTube, actually, if you look hard enough. But then was a lot of the country and stuff like that, right? I still have an affinity for country because of that, and but well, after we moved to the United States, I guess it was in the tail end of middle school, I think, was when I started getting into things like Metallica, and
Yeah.
right, and I kind of immersed myself into the metal world more, and also there's a website called mp3.com at the time. I think it still exists, but back then it was a very different site. It's
Yes.
like it used to be free downloads of whatever music was out there.
Got it. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And now it's kind of like more like a music catalog site or something like that. It's more like an informational kind of a deal. I think last time I checked, perhaps similar to Last FM or something. But but back in the day, you could just download songs willy nilly.
I remember that. I remember
Right,
when MP3 came out, it changed the world, man.
right,
Napster and all those things.
right. Yeah. So I was just introducing myself to various styles, but metal was the one that kind of stuck. And
Yeah.
it's a and I guess I was kind of going down that road. And in 2020, I joined a band, a melodic death metal band in Florida, and as a keyboardist, because at the time I was trying to focus on being more of a keyboardist, and the time was right to join a band. At the time I was in college, um, and we played some gigs, but occasionally we've got a big a big we were opening act for someone
Opening act.
relatively big. Like the biggest one, or at least my personal favorite that we've opened for, was a band called Blind Guardian.
Haven't heard of that one.
They're a German group. It's
Okay.
yeah, they have some fame, in the power metal style, but
Yeah.
yeah, but that was a pretty big experience because they were a huge band, and we got to open up for them. That was an unforgettable experience.
Fantastic.
Right. Yeah. And and eventually, I kind of branched off to trying to work on my own stuff. I've been trying to work on a demo for my own band called The Worldless, but it's
Yes.
been slow, and collaborators are few or flaky, and it's like I've had trouble with that project. So I've been kind of focusing on solo stuff right now, but I will finish more on that metal project, because Worldless is a metal project. So right.
No, excellent, excellent. I mean, I think it's a great time if you're a creator. I mean, since the collapse of the record industry, which is basically gone at this point, you're doing all the right things. You got your music on YouTube. I'm sure you got it on like Spotify, the single tracks.
Well, I haven't taken advantage of Spotify, but
Okay.
yeah, right
Well,
now it's just on Bandcamp and on SoundCloud.
okay, well, yeah, fair enough. You gotta be your own manager. You gotta do it all, the promotions, and get it out there. But it's an exciting time because you can. Once upon a time, it was all kept behind the doors of the big labels.
Right, right, yeah.
It is an uphill battle, but if you're passionate about it, I'm sure it'll
Exactly, yeah.
work out.
Right, yeah. But the thing is, it's like I still foresee it to be difficult for me because, well, the thing about the metal community, with all its talk of, the online metal community, at least, with all its talk about, being this whole, supportive community and stuff like that, where the bands support each other, it's mired right now, in my opinion, in political correctness. So, like,
Really, the metal community.
yes, the metal community, right? It's very, what they deem right wing nowadays is just almost not tolerated anymore.
Yeah.
There's some there, but they're kind of taken to being sort of quiet, and it's like, yeah, there's been some broken connections, and I myself have been kind of disengaged completely from that. So I think I'm going to foresee some increased difficulty working with more collaborators, in the future, I think.
Wow. I mean, at the same time, you might be tapping into something if it is that you do have, because I mean, let's be the social justice nonsense has taken over media. It's taken over movies and stuff like that. We had a brief discussion about Star Trek before
Yeah,
and stuff
right.
like that. We'll do like a full 2-hour episode at some time.
Exactly. You're right. Yeah.
That is now the mainstream. And what I'm hopeful for, and of course, there's no way to know, every generation kind of rebels against the one before. I'm hoping that the younger generation, that they're going to rebel, and there's probably going to be a huge market for more conservative, well, not conservative, maybe not the right word, but more of the traditional, logical, Randian type of music.
Like, I've been trying to figure out a label or a name to categorize, just because it's kind of awkward to say not woke or not politically correct. Even politically incorrect sounds like it's trying to be that on purpose instead of because they're trying to be honest. So I've been struggling to kind of come up with a title for that.
Right. I know. I agree. I'm struggling even thinking about it now. But I think you're in the right place. If you go in that direction, that's probably going to be the next big thing as the culture, Occam's razor, it swings in the other direction. So you might be on the edge, my friend. You might be on the cusp.
Right.
I mean, were your parents very supportive of your music endeavors? Were you piano lessons, obviously, this kind of thing?
So, I mean, I took some piano lessons when I was in Japan when I was a kid, but at the time, I wasn't, I was kind of, I won't say I was made to do it, but I was kind of doing it because my brother was also doing it at the time or something like that. He's not a musician, by the way. It's just, as kids, you might be taking one lesson or the other, right?
Yeah.
But, and here's the thing, like, I'll be 100% honest, like, in the orchestra in late middle school and high school, why do you think I joined?
Girls.
Well,
that's
a funny answer, but
go ahead.
It's a similar kind of an answer. It was because my friends were in it.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
So it was
girls too.
yeah. I mean, there's cute. There were girls there for sure, but the problem is not the problem, but my best friends were in the orchestra, and at the time I wasn't in the orchestra, but I wanted to do what they were doing. See, I talk about nonconformity, but the reason I talk about nonconformity is because conformity is a big pressure.
Yeah,
I had to fight it every step of the way, and to be further honest, it was good that I joined. I was able to learn the cello and actually make the friendships better. So so some good came out of that for sure. But it was just something that somebody might not expect is a motive for me to join the orchestra. But I did, and eventually, that's where it kind of led to me playing instruments, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, excellent. And I mean, don't be too hard on yourself. You're a kid.
Right.
I mean, we look at our philosophy as older men and stuff and look back and be like, oh man, how did I let you're a kid,
Right.
Nobody avoids it entirely.
Exactly. Right.
So I mean, you talked about your dad and the country music. Was your mom into any kind of music? Was she maybe theater, opera, something like that?
Well, no, but she was into a new age artist called Kitaro.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, the guy with the drums.
The guy with the drums and the guy with the synthesizers. He was the first guy that included Oriental influences and with synthesizers.
I have his album actually somewhere.
I have
where it is.
Yeah, I have several. I have In Person Live.
Yeah.
And I have the first album, Astral Voyage, and I had the second one, Full Moon Story, and I have a few others, including Chi and stuff like that. But he's a big influence in my playing style. Like I channel Kitaro when I do something that's more of a synth kind of a thing. And I did that a lot with my solo album, Echoes of Inner Space. So so his influence is clear, but it was my mom's tapes that I first immersed myself into. Yeah.
Fantastic. And to this day, they're very supportive of your music choices. And
well, I mean, I don't know if
they very different to their style, but
yeah, I don't know if they really like the music at all. But it's like they don't have a problem with me doing it. They're not against it. So yeah, right.
I mean, it's important. On the issue of men's rights, the absent father is such a cliche on that. The generation of lost boys and stuff. I mean, these are all things we could have touched on.
Right. Yeah.
But, I mean, you've obviously had very good influence. It's helped you be creative. It helped make you the man that you are now. And I mean, hopefully one day, do you have plans of maybe one day being a father yourself?
No, I hope to. Yeah, but like we discussed this kind of off camera, I think. But we want to be in a better financial situation and probably get that house or something like that before we start having it. We're kind of too careful about children. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think in this day and age, you have to be, because there's so much out there you got to look at. We're coming up on a close very quickly, though. One of the other topics, we didn't really get into it. You got a podcast that was canceled. What's up with this?
I did this audio commentary series of Star Trek that it's like, the idea was like riff tracks. Like, do you know what riff tracks is?
Yeah,
Sure. So you play something on your own, but you overlay my audio.
Yes,
as kind of like a commentary.
Mystery Science Theater 3000
right,
kind of.
Exactly. But I was gonna hope to do like a proper analysis and stuff like that. And for the most part it was, but the problem is it was sometimes too much like riff tracks. Like I really was riffing on something or the other, and
the set shaking and some of the older shows.
Because I tried to do that as an alternative to like an essay review, right? Because that was too time consuming for me to do, and I felt like I was synopsizing the episode most of the time. So I was trying to do this thing as an alternative to that, but then this one, it didn't really have an audience, and I didn't like what I was doing, so I basically canceled it. But here's the thing: I still want to review Star Trek, and so around 2022, I want to get back into actually reviewing it in a video format this time, where I actually properly write out a script, because I'm not very good at spontaneous talking. I'm not talking interviews like this, but like going off half cocked on some on something that requires more detailed thought. I made a mistake with that podcast, so it's gone now.
How many episodes did you do, if you don't mind?
I did it up to the Apple. That's episode 38, I think.
Ah, that's pretty good.
It was pretty good, but
can you still listen to it? Is it still on?
No, I got rid of the account, and I think the show was shut down. But it's like, I made a lot of mistakes in it. There's too much areas of silence where I shouldn't have, and like I don't know, it wasn't really materializing itself to anything I really wanted it to be. But I want to take a break, watch Star Trek for pleasure for a while, without kind of having to obligation or anything like that, and come back strong and start over, but with a proper video series this time. I think it's going to be good this time when I do it.
I think it's a great idea, and as I mentioned, my co-host Amos Joe, he's a huge Star Trek fan. Maybe that we could do like a roundtable and discussing some of the episodes and stuff. I think that would be great.
Well, I'll jump right on that if you
absolutely. My friend, we've reached time. Just a couple of very, very popcorn questions. So, like, sure. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie? Oh my god! You know the Hayao Miyazaki film Castle in the Sky, which the Japanese call Lapita.
Yeah, the anime, right? Yeah, I think
yes,
I've
seen it. Yeah. That to this day is a big time favorite. Other favorites, well, I mean that is the favorite movie if I had to make that answer to the question. But I got other favorites too, and they kind of change over time,
Of course. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food, good grief. Man, I don't know if I can come up with like one answer. Like I have to come up several. Like Japanese style ramen, of course. Like in restaurants, pizza, hamburgers, like stuff like that. But also like steak and my family's recipe for vegetable soup. Recently, I've been experimenting with adding habaneros to chili, and that's been pretty tasty. So
spicy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like all sorts of food, and I like to try various kinds of things. So
fantastic. And lastly, what's your favorite band
right now? Shadowman.
Shadow. Oh, I haven't heard much, but I've heard they're really good. So I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah. So do you know? So do you know which band Shadowland? Because it sounds like a name that several other bands might have.
I'm not sure if it's the same. Obviously, I'll have to look into it. But which was it? Is it a Norwegian band?
No. It's a British band.
British. Okay.
Right. It's Clive Nolan's band. I don't know if you know who that musician is, but
I'll check it out.
Right. Yeah. A lot of bands have Shadow in their name. There's Shadow Gallery. There's Shadow Play. So I don't know. There's like a Shadow this, Shadow that. A friend's band is called Shadow Strike. So,
There you go. I mean, it's metal, right? It's all metal. So I'll check it out. I'll
Sure,
check it
right.
out.
Okay,
Well,
I can direct you to the right band. So
I always appreciate it, my friend. Vernon, thank you so much. You know, I did only say I wanted to take your time for an hour. We've done just a little bit over that.
the excess doesn't hurt. It's all right.
Yeah, fair. I'm glad to hear. We'll do it again. We
Yeah,
didn't even scratch the surface on a lot of these topics.
yeah, we did not.
Oh, yeah, we got question 3 on the list. But you are an absolutely fabulous guest. And just very quickly, let people know. I put all of your links below, but let people know what's the best way to get in touch with you.
Get in touch with me with Gab, or because that's where I'm trying to be right now. I don't know if Parler is up anymore. I would tell you my Twitter, but I'm going to get rid of that tomorrow.
Yeah,
So
if I didn't have the podcast, I wouldn't be on Twitter or Facebook or any of these things. But
okay, right, yeah.
I
But
completely agree.
this is kind of like a principles kind of thing. I'm screw Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, you ban the president, I have nothing more to do with you. That's my attitude.
Right, yeah, sure. I mean, that's not the only reason, but it's a big reason, right? So that's a whole subject altogether.
We'll do that for the next one.
Yeah,
Text censorship and stuff.
absolutely. Yeah. All right. So take care. Have a good one. Thank you for
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. And again, Vernon, all your links are below. Thank you so much for joining us. And everybody join me on Sunday for Religion Zero at 3 p.m. The 10K Run podcast is moving to Tuesdays. Subscribe to that channel for more information. So everybody, thanks for watching. Take care.
Thanks, guys.